Double sleeve guard. In my opinion, this is one of the best guards to play in regards to stopping someone to pass, as well as setting up attacks and transitioning to other guards. The fact that you're holding on to both the sleeves makes it significantly harder for the person on top to actually make certain grips and actually start to like shut down your guard. Okay? For someone to actually be able to like shut this guard down and dismantle this guard, they actually have to have a very good understanding of what to do. So, and they have to also have a good understanding of what the guard is actually consisting of. So, as Doriel was just about to do, if I have a half lasso, he knows that he needs to circle this hand. Okay, so yes, I've lost the half lasso now, but now he has to think about this bicep ride. So usually with this bicep ride, he's going to try and walk his hands up towards my knee, inside of the knee, and then start to push the leg down. Now that one leg is on the floor, now I'm quite stuck. Now I have to actually let go of the guard so I can actually start to prioritize retaining and getting my feet back to his shoulders so I can then start to put them back into this guard. So just to recap, the reason why I find this guard is so good from a defensive perspective as well as offensive is my half lasso is keeping him at bay. So even just with the half lasso on its own, if Mario was trying to run around to this side, my foot is framing on his shoulder, and if I keep my hips slightly off the floor and I crunch in, I can actually start to square up with it. This bicep ride right here, foot hooking behind the armpit, is really good because I can kind of pull him towards me and I can stay attached. If he decides to walk back, I can actually start to track him quite nicely from here. Granted that his hand isn't on the inside of my knee. And the other thing as well is a lot of people, when they play this guard, they step on the bicep. Whenever we step on the bicep, we're at risk of this one-arm throw, where our partner throws the leg across our body. When we tuck the foot behind the armpit, this takes away this opportunity. As well, sometimes people like to stack and push our feet over our head from, especially when we're in spider guard. So whenever I have my foot, one of my feet tucked under the armpit, now he can't actually stack because his own shoulder blocks my leg from going over my head. And what I want to look at today with you guys is a collar sleeve attack, and it's going to happen off of this double sleeve guard. Make sure as well, if your opponent is bringing their legs, their feet very close towards you, you have the option of transitioning to other guards, whether it's De La Hiva, K-guard, X-guard. You have a lot of options whenever someone starts to bring their feet close to you when you have their upper body on. Today though, we're just looking at an opponent who has their upper body hinged and their feet somewhat far back, a standing opponent as well. And what we're looking at is transitioning from our half lasso grip. We're going to shoot this hand towards the cross collar. And what you guys should notice here is now I have control of this collar, which means I have control of this posture, and I still have a frame set in place. I actually have two frames. So my frames in this scenario are always addressing both of the shoulders. My left foot, the initial half lasso, is framing his right shoulder, and my left hand, my collar grip, is framing his left shoulder. So effectively what I've got is I've got two blocks on his shoulder, so if he is trying to drive into me, I'm actually stopping him from driving into me. So for a split moment here, I'm actually safe. I can't get past from here, and he's actually in a fair amount of danger. The reason why is because I have my foot now looped behind his armpit. So I'm occupying this space. And as a guard player, if I can occupy this space, it means I'm winning a little battle here, which is allowing me to have the opening for his leg or his shoulder. So if you can ever get one of your feet tucked into this gap, especially with your other foot on the shoulder, you actually have an opening for some upper body as well as lower body attacks. Today we're just going to look at an omoplata first. So one of the main concepts of the omoplata is to get our knee behind our opponent's tricep. And before we get the knee behind the tricep, obviously we have to have our foot looped through. Once I can get my knee behind Ariel's tricep, one, it's going to be harder for him to retract his elbow, but now I can actually start to put pressure on his shoulder. The other thing that I want to make sure I'm doing is I'm turning his far shoulder away. And notice here, if I pull with my collar grip and I step with my other leg, I'm actually bringing his shoulder closer towards me, which is giving me the omoplata. It's giving me his up. So it's helping me get my knee behind his shoulder, which is one of our main principles for attacking the omoplata. This principle that I'm talking about, this is something that Michael Langhi talks about. I watched one of his instructionals many years ago, and this detail has stuck with me since. Knee behind tricep. So we do have that element of off-balancing as well. So for good measure, we can always add a bit of an off-balance where we take our opponent away from the limb that we're attacking. So if I want to attack his left arm, I make his right side hit. So again, we've got double sleeves. My left foot, or just one foot, it doesn't have to be the left foot. In this case, it's my left foot. I'm going on a tangent. I throw in my half lasso. I step my foot between his shoulder and his pec. Knuckles stay glued in front of the thigh. And my other foot is going to loop underneath his armpit, and it's going to hook behind his shoulder blade. Because he's hinged, his feet are far away, all he's giving me is his upper body. I'm going to switch to the collar sleeve. So I let go of my half lasso grip, and I start to push with my left leg. When I push, it means that he starts to turn his right shoulder away, and his left shoulder starts to come towards me. As I keep pushing with this leg, I'm going to start to kick my right knee through, and I keep going until I feel my knee sit behind his tricep. Another key detail with this hand is that I'm punching his wrist into my pocket. Now watch what happens here. As I start to bring my knee towards my chest, I'm starting to pull his elbow towards me while his hand goes away. So I'm getting his hand behind his elbow. So I start to pull my knee towards my chest, kneeing him in the elbow, and now I can start to chop my calf over his tricep and lock a trap. Make sure that you don't lock your omoplata at the shoulder. We want it to lock at the elbow because it's further down the lever. It's going to actually put a lot more pressure on the shoulder. So here I'm starting to turn away, kicking my knee through, kneeing in the tricep, and then chopping the back of my calf over his tricep to triangle my legs. Notice as well, I'm keeping this collar grip with my left hand. Let's go again. Half lasso, bicep ride, switch to my collar grip, start to kick the far shoulder away. As I turn and bring his shoulder towards me, my knee starts to go behind his tricep. Now I start to knee his tricep. Pulling my knee tighter to my chest, hand punching into my pocket, chopping my calf over the tricep, and triangling my legs. You have to make sure that you keep this collar grip. If you don't keep the collar grip, if Noriel starts to posture up, you can actually kind of lift on his arm out. If I keep the collar grip, it's going to be a lot harder for him to move. So I stay a lot more attached to his tricep. Sometimes when we go for this omoplata and we're really starting to step on the shoulder and hang off the tricep, sometimes what happens is as I'm going for this omoplata, my opponent starts to walk his feet backwards. They're getting kind of hinged. And if I just stay square and he keeps walking backwards, I lose this connection with his body, especially this foot on his tricep. So what I need to do to maintain the connection and stay attached is I actually need to start to take my head towards this arm here. So I'm actually starting to crunch in and almost invert underneath my opponent as this happens. So it should look like this. I'm going for my omoplata, my opponent's walking back, and I start to crunch in. And what happens here is, instead of my knee getting behind the tricep like so, you can lift your hips up to catch this position. We start to get this very shallow omoplata position where I have a free knee. But because I'm completely upside down and I have some kind of pressure going on the back of his tricep here, I can actually still lock up my omoplata. And a lot of the time, because I've taken away this post, because I'm putting pressure on his shoulder like this, I can actually sometimes start to chop my legs down and take him over for like a tornado style swing. Now, this is a position that you have to obviously go for very quickly. You can't chill and wait there. If I wait in this position with both my hands occupied on the sleeve, Noriel can start to step his leg over, and he can keep walking around and step his other leg over, and now I'm actually almost getting past. And a lot of people, when they get in an omoplata, they will actually try and either jump over, cartwheel over, or run around to this side so that they can actually put you in a really compromising position. It's a really good defense for the omoplata. So what I want you guys to look at now is, first thing, I want you guys to practice trying to chase this omoplata when your opponent is starting to walk back. And I want you to get a good idea of what it feels like to start to crunch in and invert and chase this like upside down omoplata. Try and catch it with your knee in. Make sure though, if my knee is too far deep, because of the positioning between myself and Noriel, he's already almost in side control. If I really commit my knee now, when he steps his right leg over, now I'm actually in a very deep guard pass. Okay, so this is very, very bad for me. If you do end up in this position, you are really relying on your bottom leg here. So let's get back to this position and step over. We're relying on trying to spin all the way through to either recapture the omoplata or re-guard. Hopefully this doesn't happen to you guys, and this is why I advise keeping the knee free for this particular omoplata. So again, get a good hang of trying to invert as your partner is walking back, inverting and catching the omoplata. If our opponent tries to step over from here, we want to catch them as they're stepping over, axe kicking that free leg down. You can have the triangle locked as you're doing this, making sure you're holding onto the sleeve so that they can't press with their hand. As you chop your outside leg down, the pressure with your shin and their torso should actually help kick them over. Okay? But what's making the sweep happen is this outside leg as well. It's very similar to a tornado guard sweep. So, you know, tornado guard? Okay, so go on both knees. It's like a half guard. So we have a sweep that was coined by Cyborg called the tornado guard, where we can literally like kind of throw the guy over the top. And the mechanics of this, it's not the leg that's stuck in between the legs that's doing the sweep. It's actually the other leg creating a stretch, and this stretch makes the leg between the legs throw them over. So if I have the posture broken down and I start to kick down, I can actually start to take my opponent all the way over the top. So it's a very similar, the mechanics are really similar, and whenever I do this omoplata sweep, it always reminds me of a tornado sweep, okay? And that's mainly the outside leg, axe kicking down to push them over, okay? Key details with this though, is that the knee line of your leg that's omoplataing is free, it's not trapped in the tricep, and our shin kind of pushes them over as well.
You don't want to be triangling?
So I have a triangle, but I'm actually ready to unlock the triangle in case it's not working. Because if I have the, let's say for example, I don't want to be too committed to this triangle, because let's say for whatever reason, both my hands are committed to the collar and sleeve, and I'm here, and Noriel manages to step over. Now both my hands are committed, and my foot, instead of being on the floor, it's now locked in a triangle. Whereas at least if my hands are free and my foot is off the triangle, I have the ability to spin back. But when you're doing the sweep, the foot is usually trapped. Just another thing as well, so what I mean by a free knee or a trapped knee, so in the first omoplata, we're looking at really getting our knee directly behind the tricep. So we're committing a good part of our femur bone, thigh bone, behind the shoulder and elbow like this. Okay? So if I were to do the same thing when I'm upside down, it would look like this. A free knee is when my knee starts to slip out of this gap, and I'm also just giving my calf and Achilles behind the tricep. And I think this is going to be not only a lot more effective for this sweep, but also a lot safer, and I have the options of potentially, let's say for argument's sake, I can't actually sweep Noriel over and I lose the arm, I can potentially start coming out towards his back. So this is why I'm really stressing the free knee in this scenario. All right, any other questions? All right, let's go. History. So a lot of people are doing the omoplata really nicely. One thing that a few people are getting stuck on is when do I invert? So these are basically two different omoplatas, and in my opinion, this second omoplata that I showed is merely just a follow-up to the first one, kind of a follow-up to the process of catching the first one. So while I'm going for the first omoplata that I showed, this one, while I'm simply going for this one, what can sometimes happen is people will start to walk back to kind of retreat, like so, and this will lead me with the second option. A lot of people kind of almost circle and step this left leg back. This is where I'm starting to go for the second part. So if Noriel's really trying to retreat and almost like run backwards, it should look like this, and I'm spinning all the way through. Okay. Sometimes in the process, maybe he stops, and I haven't been able to spin underneath, I can usually catch my standard omoplata. So the first omoplata, we're landing up in this perpendicular position. With the second omoplata, we're upside down, and we're getting parallel like this. Okay, when I'm in line with him, it's going to be my cue to start to go forward. Through the head, through the legs.